the transcendental glance of Mahavishnu over material nature produces that cosmic manifestation. So here's the first major difference between the modern scientist's conception of creation and the Vedic conception. That is, and we discussed this in depth last week in the previous chapter, where the modern materialistic scientists and evolutionists believe that material nature is itself the cause and the effect. Whereas we see from what we just read that material nature is inert. It only becomes active by the glance of Krishna or Mahavishnu over the material nature, and that becomes the source of the energy. It's just like a cell phone. Without the battery, the cell phone is inert, it's inactive. As soon as the cell phone is charged, it begins to function. So the material nature is no different than the cell phone. It's a material thing. It's made out of matter: earth, water, fire, air, and ether, or space. So it's only when it's energized by the glancing of the Lord that it becomes active. It's just like a seed seems to be inert, but when it's moistened and energized by the temperature and sunlight, it begins to grow. If it remains dry and not and a certain, and it's cold, it doesn't grow. So the energy is for material creation is given by Krishna. Mahavishnu again enters every universe as the reservoir of all living entities, called Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. From Garbhodakshaya Vishnu expands Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, the supersoul of every living entity. Garbhodakshaya Vishnu also has his own Vaikuntha planet in every universe, where he lives as the supersoul or supreme controller of the universe. Garbhodakshaya Vishnu reclines in the midst of the watery portion of the universe and generates the first living creature of the universe, Brahma. The imaginary universal form is a partial manifestation of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So when it says the imaginary universal form, it's talking of the Virat Rupa, which is a temporary form of Krishna that encompasses the whole material creation. On the Vaikuntha planet, in every universe, is an ocean of milk, and within the ocean is an island called Swetadvipa, where Lord Vishnu lives, or Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. Therefore, this chapter describes two Swetadvipas, one in the abode of Krishna and the other in the ocean of milk in every universe. The Swetadvipa in the abode of Krishna is identical with Vrindavana Dhamma, which is the place where Krishna appears himself to display his loving pastimes. In the Swetadvipa within every universe is a Shesha form of Godhead who serves Vishnu by assuming the form of his umbrella, slippers, couch, pillows, garments, residence, sacred thread, throne, and so on. So the Shesha Naga, that's on which Kshirodakshaya Vishnu is reclining, is the support of the Lord in his pastimes. So, and that is why Lord Balaram is always accompanying Lord Krishna. He takes the form of Sheshanaga and all the paraphernalia that's necessary for the Lord to have his pastimes. Lord Balaram in Krishna Loka is Nityananda Prabhu. Therefore, Nityananda Prabhu is the original Sankarshan and Mahasankarshan, and his expansions as the Purushas in the universe are plenary expansions of Nityananda Prabhu. In this chapter, the author has described the history of his leaving home for a personal pilgrimage to Vrindavana and his achieving all success there. In this description, it is revealed that the author's original paternal home and birthplace were in the district of Katwa. So when it's talking about the author, that's the author of this book called the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he's speaking about Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who authored this book 500 years ago. And so it's a pastime of the author and how he was empowered to write the book. And we'll get to that at the end of this chapter. So we're going to concern ourselves mainly with the description of Balaram, or Lord Nityananda, and with that is the whole description of the creation of the, first of all, not the creation, but the eternal spiritual world and the creation of the material world. So we will fast forward now. Lord Balarama is the original Sankarsana. He assumes 5 other forms to serve Lord Krishna. He himself helps in the pastimes of Lord Krishna, and he does the work of creation in 4 other forms. He executes the orders of Lord Krishna in the work of creation, and in the form of Lord Shesha, he serves Krishna in various ways. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. According to expert opinion, Balarama, as the chief of the original quadruple forms, is also the original Sankarsana. Balarama, the first expansion of Krishna, expands himself in 5 forms. 1. Mahasankarsana. 2. Karanab Dishayi. 3. Garbhodakshayi. 4. Shirodakshayi. And 5. Shesha. These 5 plenary portions are responsible for both the spiritual and material cosmic manifestations. In these 5 forms, Lord Balaram assists Lord Krishna in his activities. The first 4 of these forms are responsible for the cosmic manifestations, whereas Shesha is responsible for personal service to the Lord. Shesha is called Ananta, or unlimited, because he assists the personality Godhead in his unlimited expansions by performing an unlimited variety of services. Sri Balarama is the servitor Godhead who serves Lord Krishna in all affairs of existence and knowledge. Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who is the same servitor Godhead, Balarama, performs the same service to Lord Gauranga by constant association. In all forms, he tastes the transcendental bliss of serving Krishna. That same Balarama is Lord Nityananda, the companion of Lord Gaurasundara, or Lord Chaitanya. I have explained the 7th verse in 4 subsequent verses. By these verses, all the world can know the truth about Lord Nityananda. I surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Nityananda Rama, who is known as Sankarsana, in the midst of the Chaturvyuha, consisting of Vasudeva Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. He possesses full opulences and resides in Vaikuntha Loka, far beyond the material creation. This is a verse from Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami's diary. It appears in the 8th of the 14 verses of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So now begins a very detailed description of the spiritual world and the material creation. Beyond the material nature lies the realm known as Paravyoma, or the spiritual sky. Like Lord Krishna himself, it possesses all transcendental attributes, such as the 6 opulences. What are the 6 opulences that Krishna possesses? Beauty, all fame, all knowledge, all power, all wealth, and all renunciation. These 5 opulences render Krishna the most attractive person in the spiritual and material world. And now the explanation. According to Sankhya philosophy, the material cosmos is composed of 24 elements, which are 5 gross material elements, called the Mahabhutas: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The three subtle material elements, mind, intelligence, and false ego. The five knowledge-acquiring senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. The five active senses, and they are the arms and hands, the legs and feet, the tongue, the genital, and the anus. The five objects of sense pleasure, seeing, feeling, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and smelling. And the Mahatattva is the total material energy, which includes the time factor, the modes of material, and the modes of material nature. Empiric philosophers, unable to go beyond these elements, speculate that anything beyond them must be avyakta, or inexplicable. But the world beyond the 24 elements is not inexplicable, for it is explained in the Bhagavad Gita as the eternal sanatana nature. So the material scientists, they can only deal with the 24 elements of material creation. They refuse to talk about anything beyond that because they have no way of measuring it nor of accessing it. They just don't. They said we don't, not that we don't know, because we can't define it by measurement and quantify it. Therefore, it doesn't really exist as far as we're concerned. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just like a blind man. He can be out on a summer day, and a friend of his can say, "Oh, the sun is so beautiful today." And he said, "Well, I don't believe that." And his friend said, "Why not?" He said, "Because I can't see it." Well, of course, he's blind, he can't see. Does that mean the sun doesn't exist because he is blind? No. I mean, his friend is not blind, he sees the sun. So the scientists are like the blind man, because they can't see something with their blunt senses, they refuse to accept its existence. Empiric philosophers, unable to go beyond these elements, speculate that anything beyond them must be inexplicable. But the world beyond the 24 elements is not inexplicable, for it is explained in the Bhagavad Gita as the eternal sanatana nature. So there is no scripture in the world, not in Christianity, not in Buddhism, not in Jainism, not in Islam, not in any religion, that explains in detail the spiritual world and the qualities of God. I mean, they explain some qualities of God, but not specifically the transcendental attributes of God's body, spiritual body, and his activities, and his abode. That information is only available in rudimentary form in the Bhagavad Gita and in exhaustive detail in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Beyond the manifested and unmanifested existence of material nature, so that is called vyakta and avyakta. Vyakta means manifest, and avyakta means unmanifest. So nature, material nature, goes through these two states. Sometimes it's manifest, sometimes it's not manifest. In both states, it exists. Even when it's not manifested, it's still existing as a potential energy. So material nature is also eternal, but because it goes through an unmanifest state, it confuses people. So beyond the manifested and unmanifested existence of material nature, vyakta and avyakta, is the sanatana nature, or the eternal spiritual world, which is called the paravyoma, or the spiritual sky. Since that nature is spiritual in quality, there are no qualitative differences there. Everything there is spiritual, everything is good, and everything possesses the spiritual form of Sri Krishna himself. That spiritual sky is the manifested internal potency of Sri Krishna. It is distinct from the material sky manifested by his external potency. So, everything in the spiritual sky is made of Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha, meaning All living entities there are eternal. They have eternal bodies made of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, not of blood, veins, pus, urine, and stool, like our bodies here. But we, in this world, we have this duality between the material body and our spiritual soul. Therefore, when we hear about Krishna, we think he's like us. He must have a material body. He may have a soul, but it's covered now, just like our soul is covered by a body. And that is a fundamental mistake. Krishna's body is completely spiritual. Now, most people think that spiritual means invisible, and that's not true. Again, everything is visible and concrete in the spiritual world, but it's not made of matter. It's made of spiritual energies. And spiritual energies are visible, and they are, but they are transcendental to the infirmities of the material world. The all-pervading Brahman, composed of the impersonal glowing rays of Sri Krishna, exists in the spiritual world with the Vaikuntha planets. So the Vaikuntha planets are floating in this spiritual light called the Brahman. And that Brahman effulgence also enters into this material world when it's reflected off of the sun. And then the sun, by reflecting the energy of Brahman, is the source of all life and energy in the material world. So this Brahman effulgence pervades the spiritual world, and it's like the support of the spiritual world, in which all the Vaikuntha planets are present, and above them Krishna's eternal abode of Vrindavan. And then it enters the material world also by being reflected off of the sun, and it permeates everywhere in the universe and supports the entire universal material creation. And we know that because wherever the sunlight goes, there is energy in the form of electromagnetic waves and other types of potencies. Of course, scientists have only identified gravity and electromagnetism, but there are other potencies also, and it's all coming from that sunlight, which is coming from the spiritual world. So it says, the all-pervading Brahman, composed of the impersonal glowing rays of Sri Krishna, exists in the spiritual world with the Vaikuntha planets. We can get some idea of that spiritual sky by comparison to the material sky, for the rays of the sun in the material sky can be compared to the Brahma Jyoti, the glowing rays of the personality of Godhead. In the Brahma Jyoti, there are unlimited Vaikuntha planets, which are spiritual and therefore self-luminous, with a glow many times greater than that of the sun. The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, his innumerable plenary portions and the portions of his plenary portions dominate each Vaikuntha planet. In the highest region of the spiritual sky is a planet called Krishna Loka, which has three divisions, namely Dwarka, Mathura, and Goloka or Gokula. So now we're beginning to hear about the cosmology of the spiritual world. And also, it's very clear that the sun light in the material world is coming from the Brahma Jyoti, from the spiritual world. To a gross materialist, this kingdom of God, Vaikuntha, is certainly a mystery. But to an ignorant man, everything is a mystery for want of sufficient knowledge. That's like a proverb right there. For an ignorant man, everything is a mystery for want of sufficient knowledge. The kingdom of God is not a myth. Even the material planets, which float over our heads in the millions and billions, are still a mystery to the ignorant. Yet people have been contemplating the universe for many, many years. And it's a mystery, because the planets are at such distances that it's almost, well, it's virtually impossible for, if you have to travel 40,000 light years to get to the farthest planet, you think you're going to live long enough to see it? You know, No, you're not going to see. A light year is the distance that light, which travels at approximately 170,000 miles per second. It's the distance that light traverses in one earthly year. So imagine how many seconds in a year, and multiply it by 170,000, and you'll get a light year. So we don't even live 1/1,000,000th of that light year. So it's unimaginable to reach different different planets and galaxies in this one universe, and there are many other universes. Just imagine the power and opulence of God, of Krishna. So it says, the kingdom of God is not a myth. Even the material planets which float over our heads in the millions and billions are still a mystery to the ignorant. Material scientists are now attempting to penetrate this mystery, and a day may come when the people of the earth will be able to travel in outer space and see the variegatedness of these millions of planets with their own eyes. In every planet, there is as much material variegatedness as we find in our own planet. So, I mean, there are millions and billions of planets, different planets, in our one universe. Just imagine, you know, all the variety in this one universe, and there are billions of universes. So how can we even approach such a expansive universe? We can't even. We haven't actually explored our own universe yet, our own planet yet completely. There are parts of our planet that have still not been discovered. The Earth, and on the Earth planet, there is, underneath the crust of the Earth, are other civilizations that we have never even seen yet. We don't even know they exist.
Some of us do.
Maybe. Okay. So, this planet Earth is but an insignificant spot in the cosmic structure. Yet foolish men, puffed up by a false sense of scientific advancement, have concentrated their energy in the pursuit of so-called economic development on this planet, not knowing of the variegated economic facilities available on other planets. According to modern astronomy, the gravity of the moon is different from that of the Earth. Therefore, one who goes to the moon will be able to pick up large weights and jump vast distances. In the Ramayana, Hanuman is described as being able to lift huge weights as heavy as hills and mountains and jump over the ocean with them. Modern astronomy has confirmed that this is indeed possible. The disease of the modern civilized man is his disbelief of everything in the revealed scriptures. Faithless non-believers cannot make progress in spiritual realization, for they cannot understand the spiritual potency. The small fruit of a banyan tree contains hundreds of seeds, and in each seed is the potency to produce another banyan tree with the potency to produce millions more of such fruits. This law of nature is visible before us, although how it works is beyond our understanding. This is but an insignificant example of the potency of Godhead. There are many similar phenomena that no scientist can explain. Yeah, one banyan tree seed can grow a tree. There's one banyan tree you can see today in Calcutta. It's an entire city block, the one tree. And it's a big city block. And it has hundreds and thousands of branches, and each branch will have an extension that goes downward and forms a root. So you can't tell which is the original trunk of the tree, because there are thousands of them. Each branch can grow a trunk of a tree, because there's one, let's say, growth from the branch, and it goes downward, and it roots, and it becomes another trunk. So in that way, the banyan tree, we have one banyan tree in our temple in Hawaii, in Oahu, and in Honolulu, and they have to constantly keep trimming it because it keeps expanding, and they have to keep cutting it back. Otherwise, it would encompass the whole 2 acres of our property and overwhelm our temple building. See? So the seed pod of a banyan tree has hundreds of seeds in it. It's unbelievable, the potency of such a tree. Everything, in fact, is inconceivable, for the truth is revealed only to the proper persons. Although there are varieties of personalities, from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, all of whom are living beings, their development of knowledge is different. Therefore, we have to gather knowledge from the right source. Indeed, in reality, we can get knowledge only from the Vedic sources. The 4 Vedas, with their supplementary Puranas, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and their corollaries, which are known as Smritis, are all authorized sources of knowledge. If we are at all to gather knowledge, we must gather it from these sources without hesitation. So the curse on us today is modern education. And I want to read something about that. It's Shri Upanishad and mantra. I mentioned this last night, but I want to, mantra 9. It says, Andam tamaha pravisanti ye vidyam upasyate tato bhuya yuvate tamo ya yuvidyayam rataha. Those who engage in the culture of nescient activities, meaning ignorant activities, shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance. Worse still are those engaged in a culture of so-called knowledge. So, it says that there are 2 categories of people here. One cultivates mundane knowledge, and they're going to go to the darkest region of ignorance. And the other one engages in a culture of so-called knowledge. These are the people who cultivate, who are basically atheists and cultivate Mayavad philosophy. They are even worse than the materialists who cultivate mundane knowledge. They're worse. Although they perform yoga, although they perform austerities, although they study the Vedas, and so forth. Now we're going to find out why. This mantra offers a comparative study of vidya and avidya. Vidya means knowledge, and avidya means ignorance. Avidya, or ignorance, is undoubtedly dangerous, but vidya, or knowledge, is even more dangerous when mistaken or misguided. This mantra of Shri Upanishad is more applicable today than at any time in the past. Modern civilization has advanced considerably in the field of mass education. But the result is that the people are more unhappy than ever before because of the stress placed on material advancement to the exclusion of the most important part of life, the spiritual aspect. Did you ever hear this before?
Probably.
No, I don't think so.
We'll repeat it, please.
This mantra of Shri Upanishad is more applicable today than at any time in the past. Modern civilization has advanced considerably in the field of mass education. Actually, it should be messed education. It's messed up.
Dissemination of mass ignorance.
Yes. But the result is that people are more unhappy than ever before because of the stress placed on material advancement to the exclusion of the most important part of life, the spiritual aspect. As far as vidya, or knowledge, is concerned, the first mantra has explained very clearly that the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of everything, and that forgetfulness of this fact is ignorance. Well, everyone has forgot this. Trump has forgot this. Putin has forgot this. Netanyahu has forgotten this. Everybody's forgotten it. That Krishna is the proprietor of everything. They all think we are the proprietors, right? Or this group is a proprietor, or that ethnicity is a proprietor, or this racial group is the proprietor. The more a man forgets this fact of life, meaning that Krishna is the ultimate proprietor of everything, the more he is in darkness. In view of this, why? Because if you forget that God is the proprietor, then you'll steal things and misuse things, thinking that you're the proprietor. The more a man forgets this fact of life, the more he is in darkness. In view of this, a godless civilization directed toward the so-called advancement of education is more dangerous than a civilization in which the masses of people are less educated. More dangerous. Why? Because they produce atomic bombs, they produce hormone replacement therapy, they produce, all kinds of, poisonous things, right? They become experts in inorganic elements, inorganic substances, right?
They eat rotted flesh.
They eat rotted flesh, yes. All these things.
Good.
Yeah. Of the different classes of men, karmis, jnanis, and yogis, the karmis are those who are engaged in the activities of sense gratification. In the modern civilization, 99.9% of the people are engaged in the activities of sense gratification. 99.9% of the population. Under the flags of industrialism, economic development, altruism, political activism, and so forth, so on. All these activities are more or less based on satisfaction of the senses to the exclusion of the kind of God consciousness described in the first mantra. First mantra of this book. This is mantra 9. In the language of Bhagavad Gita 7:15, people who are engaged in gross sense gratification are mudhas, asses. The ass is a symbol of stupidity. Those who simply engage in the profitless pursuit of sense gratification are worshipping avidya, or ignorance, according to Sri Upanishad. And those who play the role of helping this sort of civilization in the name of educational advancement are actually doing more harm than those who are on the platform of gross sense gratification. You ever hear anything like this? Prabhupada is brilliant. He's analyzed it. The advancement of learning by a godless people is as dangerous as a valuable jewel on the hood of a cobra. A cobra decorated with a valuable jewel is more dangerous than one not decorated. In the Hari Bhakti Sudodaya 3:11-12, the advancement of education by godless people is compared to decorations on a dead body. In India, as in many other countries, some people follow the custom of leading a procession with a decorated dead body for the pleasure of the lamenting relatives. One time I actually saw a funeral home workers bathe the dead body.
That's what they do.
Cut the fingernails.
Yeah, everything. They get it ready.
Shave.
For viewing.
Shave.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw them do the whole thing, and clothe the person in brand new, nice.
Very morbid.
Yeah. And then, comb the hair and do some things so the mouth stays closed.
Yeah, they wire the jaw.
Yeah. And so in the viewing that took place after that, I was the priest. In the viewing, this one man came up and was looking at the dead man, and another man was standing next to him. He said, he looks better dead than alive. So, because when he was alive, he wasn't so, clean and well-dressed, right? So he looked better dead than alive.
Well, he was much lighter for sure.
So it says here that in India, as in many other countries, some people follow the custom of leading a procession with a decorated dead body for the pleasure of the lamenting relatives. In the same way, modern civilization is a patchwork of activities meant to cover the perpetual miseries of material existence. All such activities are aimed towards sense gratification, but above the senses is the mind, and above the mind is the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul. Thus, the aim of real education should be self-realization, realization of the spiritual values of the soul. Any education which does not lead to such realization must be considered avidya, or nescience, or ignorance. And to culture such ignorance means to go down to the darkest region of ignorance. Okay, now this is the sense gratifiers culture. Right? But there's something worse than this. Can you imagine that? There's something worse than this. And the destination is even worse. According to the Bhagavad Gita 2:42 and 7:15, mistaken, mundane educators are known as Veda Vadarata and Maya Aprita Jnana. So, verse number 42 and 43, they go together, and it says, Ya imam pushpitam, Ya idam pushpitam bacham, prabhadantya vipaschitaha, vedavada rata partha, nanyat astiti vadina, karmatmana swarga para, janma karma phala pradam, kriya vishesha bahulam bogaiswarya gatim prapti. So it says, men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, result in good birth, power, and so forth, being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life. They say that there is nothing more than this. And then the other verse, 7:15, says, Chaturvidha bhajante man. No, wait a minute, let me think. 7:15 says, yeah, Chaturvidha bhajante man, jana sakritina rijana, artarti jigyasu, arto jigyasu artarti, jnanicha paratarsabha. Let me see if that's the verse he quoted, 7:15. No. Yeah. Namam duskritina mudha prapadyante naradama, maya aprita jnana asuram bhavam asritaha. Right, so this is 7:15. This verse says that those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are the lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. So that third line of this verse, maya aprita jnana, means those whose knowledge is stolen by illusion. Now he's talking about Mayavadis. The previous verse was talking about what we just read, the sense gratifiers. Now he's going to talk about Mayavadis. And they are called Vedavada Ratas. A Vedavada Rata is a person who reads the Vedas but seriously misunderstands them and aims for, and they think or they imagine that they have become God. You know anyone like that? You don't have to answer. Okay.
Are you referring to me?
No.
Oh.
Vedavada Rata. Supposed followers of the Vedas. They're pretenders that they're following the Vedas. Okay. So, they may also be atheistic demons, the lowest of men.
Those are the people I know. They're everywhere.
Those who are Vedavada Rata pose themselves as very learned in the Vedic literature. But unfortunately, they're completely diverted from the purpose of the Vedas. In the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, it is said that the purpose of the Vedas is to know the personality of Godhead. Vedaischa sarvir aham eva vedya. That's the third line of 15:15. These Veda-rata men are not at all interested in the personality of Godhead. On the contrary, they are fascinated by such fruitive results as the attainment of heaven. As stated in Mantra 1, we should know that the personality of Godhead is the proprietor of everything, and that we must be satisfied with our allotted portions of the necessities of life. Ishavaishamidam sarvam jatkinja jagatyam jagat tena taktena bunjitaha magritaha kashasviddanam. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So, Krishna has set aside for every one of us our minimal needs. When we take more than what we need, we get entrapped by the laws of material nature in the cycle of karma, repeated karma, where one selfish action leads to another selfish action, leads to another selfish action, and then we're trapped in the reactions. So actually, according to that, someone who's very rich, in other words, they have more money than what they actually need, is a very sinful person, and therefore they can become entrapped by the laws of karma. Okay, so as stated in Mantra 1, we should know that the personality of God is the proprietor of everything, and that we must be satisfied with our allotted portions of the necessities of life. As we advance spiritually, our material needs diminish. As we ignore spiritual advancement, our material needs increase until we're overwhelmed. You know. The purpose of all Vedic literature is to awaken this God consciousness in the forgetful living being. And the same purpose is presented in various ways in the different scriptures of the world for the understanding of a foolish mankind. Thus, the ultimate purpose of all religions is to bring one back to Godhead. But the Veda-rata people, these are the people who assume they know the Vedas, but they don't understand anything about them. Instead of realizing that the purpose of the Vedas is to revive the forgetful soul's lost relationship with the personality of Godhead, take it for granted that such side issues as the attainment of heavenly pleasure for sense gratification, the lust for which causes their material bondage in the first place, are the ultimate end of the Vedas. Such people misguide others by misinterpreting the Vedic literature. Sometimes they even condemn the Puranas, which are authentic Vedic explanations for laymen. The Veda-ratas give their own explanation of the Vedas, neglecting the authority of the great teachers or acharyas. They also tend to raise some unscrupulous person from among themselves and present him as the leading exponent of Vedic knowledge. Such Veda-ratas are especially condemned in this mantra by the very appropriate Sanskrit word vidyayam rataha. Vidyayam refers to the study of the Vedas because the Vedas are the origin of all knowledge, vidya, and rataha means those engaged. Vidyayam rataha thus means those engaged in the study of the Vedas. The so-called students of the Vedas are condemned herein because they are ignorant of the actual purpose of the Vedas, or on account of their disobeying the acharyas. Such Veda-ratas search out meanings in every word of the Vedas to suit their own purposes. They do not know that the Vedic literature is a collection of extraordinary books that can be understood only through the chain of disciplic succession. So here we have what's called parampara. Yeah, there was one man that was coming here, and he was trying to teach Sanskrit to some of our devotees. But his actual goal was not to teach Sanskrit. It was to teach Mayavad philosophy.
What?
Yes.
Yeah, he was here for a few months. I don't see him these days.
No, he doesn't come. He got angry.
Okay.
because nobody wanted to come to his class. when they finally figured out after about 3, 4, 5 sessions that his real purpose was to teach them to be Mayavadis, to not you know, and then he came up to me and he said, "There's something wrong in this temple. This temple is not right." I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "You base everything on chanting Hare Krishna. You have to base it on Vedanta." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You people, you know, I'm trying to teach them the real Vedic philosophy," and they said, "Well, just chant Hare Krishna." "This is nonsense," he said. "This is not Vedas." So this was very comical. You know, he was very frustrated. You know, but the devotees finally stopped going to his class because he was trying to teach them to become a Mayavadis, to believe that there's no God and you can become God by doing some meditation or studying Sanskrit or whatever, you know. And he gave an impersonalist interpretation of self-evident verses. He would take verses of the Bhagavad Gita, and by analyzing each word, you know, in Sanskrit, skewing out wrong meanings of the words, and then trying to teach that to the devotees. And when they realized what he was doing, they stopped going to his class. And he got really frustrated.
So he's teaching Vedanta, not Krishna?
He was not even teaching Vedanta. He was teaching the Mayavad interpretation of Vedanta. That's not Vedanta.
Remind me what Vedanta is. I used to know
Vedanta, Veda Anta. It means the conclusion of the Vedic knowledge.
Oh, the conclusion of the Vedic knowledge. The
Right.
Vedanta, the conclusion is Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Vedaischa sarver aham eva vedya. Right.
It's the open secret, right?
It's no secret. It's
Or what's it called?
It's a secret only for people who have been poisoned by Mayavad philosophy. They can't figure it out, although it's self-evident. Right?
Yeah, so like, why don't the Vedanta teachers realize the Bhagavad Gita is the...
No, not Bhagavad Gita. The Vedic literature in general. The Vedanta is a Vedic literature.
Well, all of the Upanishads are Vedic
No,
literature,
but
right?
it's like
Yeah.
this. There's the original 4 Vedas. There are the Upanishads, which are the philosophical parts of the 4 Vedas.
Ah,
Then there's the Puranas, the ancient histories from the beginning of creation. And then there's the Mahabharata, the story from it's about history of the world from the creation to the end of the Battle of Kurukshetra. And then there's the Vedanta Sutra, which is, you can call it a very high-end philosophical treatise of understanding the philosophy of God.
so the overall, the top, where it all started are the 4 Vedas, taught
Yeah.
by Manu and whatnot.
You would say it started at the bottom, the foundation of the 4
The
Vedas.
foundation, okay. And so what it, so
And
those are
then
the 4 Vedas.
then parts of each of those 4 Vedas are the philosophical parts called the Upanishads.
The Upanishads. Oh, okay, gotcha.
So Upanisha, it helps you now to go from trying to achieve materialistic goals through performing the rituals to the demigods that are recommended in the Vedas, to coming closer to Isha, the Supreme Personality of God. The movement begins, the philosophical movement begins to understand the nature of God as opposed to man simply satisfying his material needs. So all the yagyas and rituals that people perform
Come from the 4 Vedas.
4 Vedas, and it's basically for 4 purposes. That is religiosity, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Religiosity, material development, economic development, sense gratification, and then ultimate liberation. But these are 4 material goals. You see. So, by performing those rituals, you can advance and more or less easily attain your material desires. Right.
So then what do Upanishads?
But the Upanishads begin, the Upanishads are in each of there are 18 Upanishads. So they are in the 4 books of the Vedas. Okay? They are the philosophical parts of the Vedas. But they start revealing to you that there's something more than simply improvement of sense gratification, right? Whether it's on this planet, which is low-grade sense gratification, or on the heavenly planets where there's high-grade sense gratification, longer duration of life. But you're still in the material world. You got promoted from 3rd grade prisoner to 1st grade prisoner, or 1st class prisoner, but you're still in the material world, right? So that liberation is not eternal liberation, it's a conditional liberation, right? So the Upanishads begin to explain that, look, there's something better than all this, right? But they don't mention the name of Krishna in the Upanishads. They just talk about the absolute, right? Then after that you have the Puranas, which are ancient histories that explain the knowledge in the 4 original Vedas, but in story form, and the stories are real stories of the lives of people. They analyze these different lives of great saints. And
so is the Mahabharata one of the Puranas?
No. Then after that comes the Mahabharata, which is the history of the world from creation to the end of the battle of Kurukshetra, but it's full of stories. But they're real stories, but they're fascinating. And it's meant for people who don't have a philosophical mind, but they can learn the same philosophy through the stories.
Well, I understand the reason for teaching it to the children is to teach them morality, right?
That's very partial part of it, yes. Yeah. The Mahabharata not only teaches morality, it teaches all kinds of knowledge, but in a story form, in different stories of different people and different experiences in life. Okay. And then you come to the Vedanta Sutra, which is like a mathematical treatise of who is God, but doesn't mention, Krishna's name is mentioned in the Mahabharata, and the Bhagavad Gita is part of the Mahabharata, right? But the Mahabharata and the Puranas are overladen with information about Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. And sparingly there's knowledge of Krishna and Vaikuntha, but it's overwhelmed by the Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Okay. So you're not really clear. So then when he wrote the Vedanta Sutra, it gives like a mathematical definition of who is God. But it doesn't, you're still not quite sure who is God. You know a lot about God now, but you're not quite sure who it refers to. But then Vyasadeva, after writing all this voluminous literature, felt frustrated. And he wasn't quite sure why he was feeling frustrated. And then his guru came, Narada Muni, and he asked him, he said, why do I not feel fully satisfied? I've written all this Vedic literature. And it's, what he has written up to that point makes Shakespeare look like the microbe in the intestine of a mosquito.
Wow.
Right? That's how, there's poetry, there's philosophy, there's sciences. It's amazing what he wrote, right? But he's still feeling dissatisfied. So Narada Muni explains, that look, you haven't really explained to the people who God is. You've given a lot of information, and it's good information, but you overwhelm them with Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, and you don't see the trees, you don't see the forest for the trees, or you don't see the trees for the forest, or whatever. You haven't really clearly explained who God is. So then he writes the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is his most mature realization, where it's absolutely certain. And Srimad Bhagavatam he's retelling things in the 4 Vedas, in the Puranas, in the Mahabharata and in the Vedanta Sutra. He's retelling things that he's already explained, but this time he's making it very clear that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. He tightened it up. He tightened the screw.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, therefore, the Vedas are full of knowledge. They're full of knowledge, but they can tie you up, and you get confused. And then add on top of that the Mayavadis, who purposely misinterpret the Vedas, you're lost completely. You're lost completely, right? So, therefore, you can only understand the Vedic literature if you are come in contact with the parampara, the disciplic succession coming originally from Krishna. And there are 4 sampradayas originally coming from Krishna. We're in one of them, called the Brahma Sampradaya.
Okay.
There's 3 others besides us.
This one's called what again?
Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya.
This is the Gaudiya.
Yeah. Well, Gaudiya refers to different areas of India, not only Bengal, but the Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya.
Oh, this one is called that, all 4 of those names?
No. There's 3 names. It all begins with Brahma. Comes down to Madhavacharya.
Where's Manu?
Wait a minute. No. Manu's not in there. I mean, it comes to Madhavacharya, and then it goes to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in Bengal. Jai Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai. Yeah, Manu is in there, but see, they only name the most important links.
Okay, so there's Brahma,
Madhavacharya, Chaitanya.
And Chaitanya.
Right.
Oh, I thought Chaitanya was part of this one, though.
That is this one. That's the coming from Brahma, going through Madhavacharya and coming to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And so what are the other 3?
The Sri Vaishnavas, where Lakshmi is instructed by Narayana, and it goes down to...
What'd you call it? The Sri what?
Sri Vaishnava.
The Sri Vaishnava. Do they practice Sri Vidya?
No, let's not mix things up.
Okay.
In modern times, it's coming through the Alvars to Ramanujacharya. He's the modern proponent of Sri Vaishnavism. And then there is the Nimbarka that's started by the 4 Kumaras, and the modern proponent is Nimbarka. And then there is the Rudra Sampradaya, started by Lord Shiva. They were all Shiva and Kumaras and Lakshmi and Brahma. They're all instructed by Krishna, right? But then they start the disciplic succession. And the Rudra Sampradaya is not the Shiva worshippers that you see in the Hindu temples.
No?
No, it's a Vaishnava Sampradaya.
Yeah, well, right, because Shiva worshipped Vishnu. I mean, the Shiva people should know that, right?
Well, they don't. They don't.
Well, they should.
They're enemies of Vishnu.
Are they? That's strange.
Yeah. Well, you don't know the history. Anyway, and that's represented by Vishnu Swami. Okay, so those are the modern proponents of the, Vishnu Swami, Nimbarka, and Ramanujacharya and Madhavacharya. They're the modern proponents of those 4 sampradayas that are bona fide Vaishnava sampradayas.
Which sampradaya did Mahesh Yogi come from? Do you know? Maybe you don't know. I don't know.
No, I know where he came from. It's not a Vaishnava sampradaya.
It's not.
No, not at all.
It's not bona fide, not from any bona fide sampradaya.
No, there's 4 bona fide Vaishnava sampradayas. Mahesh Yogi is not in one of them. He's not affiliated to any of them, right?
Now, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came,
was
he affiliated with one of them at the time?
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah, his guru Ishwara Puri was initiated by Madhavendra Puri, who was initiated in the Madhava Brahma Madhava Sampradaya.
The Brahma Madhva Sampradaya.
Yeah, so therefore it's Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya Sampradaya.
Oh, Gaudiya. And
Gaudiya,
so
Gaudiya means, it means the Vaishnavas that were inspired by Lord Chaitanya.
This one they call the Gaudiya Sampradaya, just to make it shortened.
But it's actually Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya Sampradaya.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, no problem. That's why we're here. Yeah.
Sorry if my questions seem
No,
annoying.
that we're here to answer the questions.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We're here every day
Thank you for being gentle.
to answer the questions. All right. Okay, so now, one must approach a bona fide spiritual master in order to understand the transcendental message of the Vedas. That is the direction of the Mundaka Upanishad 1-12. These Vedavata Rata people, however, have their own acharyas who are not in the chain of transcendental succession. Thus, they progress into the darkest region of ignorance by misinterpreting the Vedic literature. They fall even further into ignorance than those who have no knowledge of the Vedas at all. So a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. The Mayaprita Jnana class of men are self-made gods. Such men think that they themselves are God and that there is no need of worshiping any other god. They will agree to worship an ordinary man if he happens to be rich, but they will never worship the personality of Godhead. Such men, unable to recognize their own foolishness, never consider how it is that God can be entrapped by Maya, his own illusory energy. If God were ever entrapped by Maya, Maya would be more powerful than God. Such men say that God is all-powerful, but they do not consider that if he is all-powerful, there is no possibility of his being overpowered by Maya. These self-made gods cannot answer all these questions very clearly. They are simply satisfied to have become God themselves.
Crazy.
Terrible.
Cuckoo bunga.
Yes. So, therefore, this verse, Ishopanishad, verse number 9, it says, those in a culture of nescient or ignorant activities shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance. These are the karmis. They perform karma yoga, but for material advancement. They follow the Vedas, but for material advancement.
They do something to get something.
Right. Worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. Now, this is the Mayavadis. They're worse than the karmis. They're worse. They study the Vedas. They quote the Vedas. They know Sanskrit. They do austerities. But they don't practice correctly nor teach correctly. They misinterpret it. They're going to go deeper into hell than the materialistic karmis who follow the Vedas for material advance. Though it's worse. They're worse. And just see what he said. He said here, as far as Vidya is concerned, the first mantra has explained very clearly that the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of everything, and that forgetfulness of this fact is ignorance. The more a man forgets this fact of life, the more he is in darkness. In view of this, a godless civilization directed toward the so-called advancement of education is more dangerous than a civilization in which the masses of people are less educated. Yeah. More dangerous. And that's what we have today. That's why you read the newspaper and you see, mass murderers, rapists, and all these things are in the news every day.
You got people believing,
and some of them are PhDs, and some of them are gurus, and some of them are archbishops and things like it's horrible.
Child molester.
Yeah, it's horrible what's going on.
And then you got people that believe we landed on the moon.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll continue tomorrow. It's a very long purport. This whole chapter is full of very high-class knowledge.
Thank you, Acharya.
It's all high-class knowledge. 5th chapter of the Adi Lila, all about Lord Nityananda Balaram. Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So we'll stop right there. Thank you very much. All
Thank you
glories to
very much.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. You see how we went through 3 books today, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad Gita, and Ishopanishad. It's all supports each other, you know. It's amazing.
So, I may ask you a question.
Yeah.
So, in the 11 years I've known you,
Yeah.
always I have referred to you as Acharya. And only now, recently, it has come to my attention that bothers some people. Does it bother you? Do you have a preference the way I should address you?
Just call me, you know, Harivilas Das.
Okay.
That's, Das is a very honorific name. It means servant of the servant of the servant of the servant ad infinitum of God.
Well, you have never said anything in your grace, but you know I don't want to be.
Well, no, Acharya has different levels of meaning. One level of meaning is Acharya means a teacher.
Yeah. Well, to me, actually, growing up here in the local community, I had this realization about 7 years ago that really you are my hero, because growing up here locally, not one person in any of the religious organizations served humanity like you. Not one. Or the devotees here. Not one. And so it just came to me, the knowledge came to me, that you're as much Acharya as anyone I've ever met or even heard or read about. So in my life right now, in this plane of material reality, to me you are Acharya. But I don't want to be offensive to people.
Hey, just call me Das.
Prabhuji, call him
Or
Prabhuji.
Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
Prabhu means you're Das, and I'm your teacher.
All right, thank you.
Haribol.
Haribol.
Glories to Prabhupada.